Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums. Today in the co-captain's chairs, both from the UK, our UK connection, Simon Bray and Stephen Reid. Hello, gentlemen. Once again, I'm spending a lot of time with you guys lately, and I have no problems with that whatsoever. So here we are once again. So today, we are going to tackle a band that has been asked for many times on this channel. And I know all three of us are fans. One of us is a really big fan. And we decided last week after Simon brought it up saying, when the hell are we going to do Manowar? We decided instead of ranking the entire catalog, because there's a whole bunch of albums and there's re-recordings and remixes and all this kind of stuff, we just decided, you know what? Why don't we just do our 5 favorite? Because we all had a feeling that we would probably cover a lot of ground in each of our favorites, because I think we all lean towards different parts of the catalog to an extent. So what we've done is we picked our top 5. I've got a couple honorable mentions just to throw out there, and hopefully everybody else does here. And hello, gentlemen, you ready to get started? Death to False Metal. Born to Live Forevermore. What other kind of Manowar sayings can we throw out there? Simon, I know you got some.
Hail and kill.
There you go.
That is how I enter a room. Hail and kill every day without fail.
Simon has already showed us off camera that he's wearing a loincloth just from the waist down, so you know.
He came ready.
I've smeared butter all over myself.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, and that was some broadsword.
And he's got a bass he's going to whip out any second. Go.
I have things to say about that.
There you go. Yeah, I'm sure. I
really do.
Yeah. So as I was telling both the guys before we went on air, I owned all of the Manowar albums up to and including Fighting the World on LP back in the day. When I sold my LP collection, I actually never replaced any of my Manowar albums on CD. And I just kind of realized that a little while ago. And then I'm like, shit, that's no good. So since I actually put my list together, I've gone and ordered like a whole bunch of them that are on the way. So I won't have anything to show today, but I know these guys have some physical copies and things. So hopefully we'll get everybody to kind of do a little show and tell as we go through. And in saying all of that, we're going to get started. We're going to work our way from number 5 to number 1. I will have Simon kick us off with his number 5. We'll go Stephen, myself, and around and around and around we go.
Before we start, right, you're American.
Yes.
We aren't. Why Manowar popular in America?
They were not popular like among the masses, but all of us who were into serious metal knew who they were, listened to them, loved them. You can, most of the albums, I think up until Fighting the World, you could only get as an import. So let's just, in general terms, nobody knew who the hell they were here except for, serious metalheads.
Yeah, because, let's be honest. There is an awful lot of piss to be taken out of Manowar. The look. I mean, they make the Village people look like Motorhead, don't they? But there's that sense of like, I can't make my mind up throughout the catalogue whether they're kind of like in on the joke or they're as deadly serious as they actually seem to be. Because certainly 30 years ago, their interviews were like, everyone must die. That's not true metal and all that stuff. I think it became more in on the joke, maybe later. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure.
I mean, I always got the impression that they took themselves pretty damn seriously. To non-fans, they were here anyway. They were looked at as a joke and cheesy, and just the outfits and the bass solos and everything about them was a little too over the top. But you got to wonder how many of those people that were saying that didn't even listen to the music. And they just didn't have much of a presence here, and you couldn't find their albums. They didn't play here a ton, and then when they did, they always insisted on headlining, and their tickets were always expensive. I think even going back to like the late 80s and 90s, you wanted to go see Manowar at a little dinky club, you were paying double what you would pay any other band. And I just never understood as a metal fan that wanted to see them succeed here, why were they not going out and opening up for Judas Priest or Iron Maiden or doing a bill with Saxon or something like that? They refused. They would not do it here. I don't know why.
And that's what makes me wonder if they were in on the joke or not, because the pomposity was so ridiculous that you thought it has to be not a piss take. It's not. They're not Steel Panther. They're not Steel Panther. However, the uncompromising nature of the piss take kind of made you wonder if they actually believed it. You'd love to think that they didn't, but kind of did. I think they did and kind of didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, they were, even with fans, they're still, not all fans, but they're still figures of fun. I think there's a lot of people, I mean, I really like eras of Manowar. Are they ripe for poking fun at? Well, yes, absolutely they are. Because there's no real other option, is there?
No. I've opened that particular can of worms. I'm going to go with my number 5. Now, you said we're probably going to be able to show albums and stuff. My man cave is still in a real bad state. I'm going to show some of them, but I'm not going to show number 5. And my number 5 is Sign of the Hammer. Thank you, Stephen.
Here we go.
There you go. That's my boy. Excellent. Love the title track. I think when in Animals, I think clearly, thank you. Joey's been listening to Twisted Sister at the time and getting into proper anthem mode. I love Eric Adams. I love him. I particularly love him as he's got older, actually. And I think he's on Mountains is just magnificent. It really, really is. But the main reason I love this album is the single "All Men Play on 10."
Great song. Great.
What a great song. And do you know what? Actually, All Men Play on 11, but that's not the point. And somewhere upstairs, I've got it on 12-inch single, and even now, it's just the loudest thing in my collection. I don't know what they did or anything, but Jesus Christ, that is a loud record, mind-blowingly awesome. And the absolute best thing about it is right at the end of the song when Eric Adams turns into Corey Feldman. Never gonna turn down again, dude. Like that. Just what the, and he's got these vocal tics that I'm going to point out to you throughout this segment, and it's just like awesome, just awesome. But you can imagine that somebody that isn't a fan of true metal really thinking, Christ, what is this?
Yeah.
But there's that sense of we believe this shit. And, I don't know anybody else except for me that likes them apart from my elder child, you guys. And I think you're in your own little world of Manowarness, and this album certainly did it for me. Now, two other things. Oh, just a goal on the football. Two other things. There's, I think, on practically every Manowar album, there's a song that's absolute dog shit. And usually, it's got something to do with the bass. And I'm going Thunderpick. Jesus. I mean, there's 4 or 5 minutes you'll never get back. Just no. Just no. That's all I've got to say. But I've always thought this. The last song, Guyana. When I'm thinking about Jim Jones and the Jonestown Massacre, and I'm looking for a sympathetic kind of treatment, Manowar's where I turn. Except I'm absolutely certain that he's singing Diana, not Guyana. Diana, the cult of the damned, and it is Princess Diana. Our hearts, what I mean. But it's that uncompromising nature of their awesomeness that has made me pick it above albums that I'm fairly confident objectively I know are better. I know that I'm missing out some of the classics in my 5, but it's just an album I really enjoy.
I can't argue it. I mean, more about that from me later, but we'll get to Stephen first. I mean, Sign of the Hammer is great. It's great.
Well, it was easy for me to find because it's my number 5. There you go. And Simon has, he's hit the nail on the head with the hammer with this album. I kind of wonder if this was the beginning of the teetering into believing what not the hype, but you know what I mean, buying into the character a little bit more than they maybe necessarily needed to. That said, it's an understated, if somewhat Nazi-like cover in many ways. It's actually quite a striking visual, and I do like it, but it's the first out of the albums, and probably the only one for quite some time, that doesn't have that about it, that Manowar just had. I mean, Manowar were one of those bands that I would put on, and my friends who were into similar music would all just, you know, it was, they just couldn't take it seriously. And they all agreed, I mean, these guys can play, let's be honest, you know, I'm ripping the piss a bit here because it's hard not to with Manowar because the whole setup is a bit ridiculous. But musically, they're a great band. So for anyone that is a massive fan, we're not just here to make fun out of them. There's some, I mean, this is album number 5, and there's some great stuff on here. All Men Play on 10. I was, what were we, 1984 with this? I think I was 11 when this came out, and it was just like, when I heard it, I mean, it raised the hair that I no longer have. I blame Manowar for my baldness. That's how fantastic that song is. And that's how you open an album. If you were going to open an album with a statement, make it that sort of statement, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. But the title track is fantastic. The Thor, the Powerhead, it's bombastic. It's a little ridiculous. I've got lots of stuff in my collection that I would class in that way. So that tells you that I like that. It's not a bad thing. But I mean, the guitar work on this is fantastic. I mean, Ross the Boss is a phenomenal guitar player. And he definitely, maybe does now. He certainly didn't get the credit back then, but none of them did. But yeah, this is really solid stuff. And for number 5, and there are other great albums too that are not in my top 5, but this is a seriously strong piece of work in my opinion. I really like Silent Hammer, really good.
Yep, I agree. Like I said, more on that in a couple minutes. But before we get there, I'm gonna go. Picking my number 5 was tough because I had a couple that were like kind of jockeying for the final position on the list. I ultimately went with their 1983 release, Into Glory Ride, with that amazing cover. I mean, you know, it's like right there, people are probably looking at that like, what in the world were these guys thinking? You know what? I've talked to a lot of people over the years who either struggle with this album or they think it's the greatest thing they've ever done. I quite like most of that album. Secret of Steel. There's some great longish kind of doomy tunes on this album, which I really like. This album is very different from a bunch of the other ones that came out around the same time. Gloves of Metal is just absolutely punishing. Gates of Valhalla, big and epic. March for Revenge, big and epic. Hatred is kind of slow and heavy. Again, there's kind of like this doomy thing going on, some of the songs on this album. But then you got Revelation, which is like, I mean, galloping power metal, right? I mean, the formula for so many other bands started with these guys. I mean, you can't deny that. But like I said, longer songs, slightly more complex arrangements, absolutely killer Eric Adams vocals on this album. You know, it's funny. I guested on a show with Bryce Talks Metal a couple months ago, and we were talking about our favorite heavy metal singers of all time, and neither one of us mentioned Eric Adams. And there were people in the comments section of that video who were like, I can't believe you guys didn't mention Eric Adams, one of the greatest heavy metal singers of all time. An oversight, right? The guy is amazing. He's kind of like the heavy metal version of Ian Gillan for me, almost, right? But really good album. It's just too bad that Warlord completely sucks balls. You know, that's like a perfect example of starting off an album with a absolute shitter. Everything after is great. It's like, come on, guys. I mean, it's not even like a Manowar sounding song. It's just lame. So, but the rest of the album, I think, rules. So that's my number 5.
Are you putting the parental advisor sticker on tonight's thing? We've been a bit sweary thus far, have we not?
Sorry.
But don't panic. I'm here to make it worse. My number 4, and this is the bit where I'm going to stick up for, I want to say modern day Manowar, but this album's 14 years old. Gods of War, which somewhere I've got in my household. Of course, Stephen's got it.
Not to hand, unfortunately. Sorry.
Oh yeah. got ridiculous cover on it, with like the most ripped warriors of all time with the bare-breasted chicks on the front, and you think, wow, 2007 fellas already. But it's just so massively and stupidly over the top, and it's the closest they've ever come to being like a symphonic metal band or something. You know, you've got the huge choirs, you've got like the story bits in between, and you've got some real sing-along great tunes like Sleipnir and references to Odin, and it's just stupidly over the top. You know, it's just mental. Everything about it is mental. It's Wagnerian. It's just insane. And you know, these guys must have been, you know, even older than I am now when they made this record, and it's just like, yes, we're Manowar, and this is where I think that they're in on the joke. You know, they really are. You know, should we have a really long overture? Yes, let's do that. Should we do some spoken word stuff like we did in the? Yes, let's do that. Should we have 48 songs on the album called Odin? Yes, let's do that. And Gods, tick. War, tick. Yeah, it's just unparalleled genius and a right big production. Some of the earlier records, to me, as I might say later, sound a bit in modern, you know, to modern ears, a bit tinny and a bit, which is weird given, you know, the bass player is the main man. But this just like blows your speakers. I've just realised I made a joke. I'll be here all week. Yeah, thank you. Bye. Yeah, I really like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So,
all right, Stephen.
Well, the reason they're all to hand is because people are choosing these in kind of a good order for me. So number 4 to me is the ridiculously covered debut album. People are going to really hate me at the end of this because I'm making lots of negative comment. I really like Manowar. But the more macho you want to become, the more camp you really manage to achieve. Wow. I mean, this is almost probably more of a UK joke here, but carry on a metal, isn't it? It's just, it's almost parody stuff. It really is. But the album isn't. The album isn't. As a debut statement, the album is pretty fantastic if you started from track 2, as Peter says. I mean, Warlord is just, it's a load of horseshit, really.
It should be great. It should be great. It's not.
Yeah, it's really not. But Secrets of Steel, Gloves of Metal, that's just, is that the worst named song in the world? It has to be. I mean, Smell the Glove of Metal. Anyway, let's just not do that, you know? At least Gates of Valhalla kind of says a bit more after that. But yeah, I mean, they're tight as hell here, aren't they? And you can laugh and joke as much as you want, and you can take the piss a bit. But I mean, the connection between Joey DeMaio and Scott Columbus, it's absolutely monstrous. Yes, production on probably the first at least 3 or 4 albums isn't what you would want from this sort of music, but they're way ahead of their time here. As you mentioned, Peter, that it's difficult to tie down who did what, who made what, where it came from, but we weren't using phrases like power metal and things before Manowar arrived on the scene, really, and they must be forefathers of that, and a whole lot more, especially in the modern European metal scene, where this is kind of done in a little bit more of a subtle way. Not much European power metal is subtle, but you understand it's not quite so in your face as that is, you know. But this is a great album, and as I say, we can laugh and joke as much as we want, but that's a fantastic debut statement, and I really like it. We're going right the way back here to 1982, so they were ahead of their time. There was lots of great metal about in 82. It's the era where metal really came back to the fore again, isn't it? You know, the new wave had kind of ushered in umpteen bands doing so many different things, kind of based around that, but Manowar took it somewhere else as well. So yeah, Into Glory Ride, really good.
Yeah, that cover's kind of like their Conan the Barbarian and his Merry Men album cover, you know?
Yes, yeah.
But even more ridiculous, yeah. All right, so my number 4. So I'm going to go to 1988. for an album that I think, for me, as much as I think all the albums that came before it really helped spearhead a new kind of metal. Like I said, something that we take for granted nowadays, we call power metal. I don't think until Kings of Metal that whole sound really, really kind of cemented itself. That, to me, more so than the ones that came before, because there's a lot of different flavors and things on the earlier albums. Kings of Metal is through and through all that European power metal became in the 90s. I mean, it's obvious. And if there's any European power metal band that doesn't give somewhat, a bit of kudos to that album and that band and this band, they're kidding themselves. I think, and this is a really good, well-produced album. I think this is probably the best they had sounded up to that point. Manic, potent, it's heavy, it's speedy with the wheels of fire, raging speed metal, galloping rhythms. I mean, Eric's fist pumping, just that whole, he's had to make that face too, right? It's like he's got to do it, got to flex the muscle, got to do it, right? The title track is absolutely crushing. What an anthem. Heart of Steel, Crown and the Ring are both just absolutely majestic, just, great soaring metal. Kingdom Come is heavy. Hail and King, epic power metal classic right there. Blood of the Kings, completely raging song. It's the last album with Ross the Boss, sadly, but man, Death to False Metal, Kings of Metal, my number 4.
Thanks for doing so much on that one. Just remember that later. Okay, I'm going to number 3, and to continuing my theme of late period Manowar. My number 3 is going to be Warriors of the World. Yeah. Now, as Stephen says, as I think we've all said, it's quite easy to take the piss, but it comes from a place of, God, this is awesome. You know what I mean? And there are just moments on this where you think, my God, this is utter genius. Is it? Yes, it is. So the
second guess yourself, right? Yeah, it's like, is this really as good as I think it is?
I remember when this came out, I just played it incessantly for a long, long time. I love the title track, "We're Warriors of the World," because you know what we are, aren't we? And there's the video where they're dressed in leather in the quarry. You think, yeah, that is so metal. Because it came out in 2002. For me, much of the 1990s was just a complete barren wasteland of musicality. I didn't really like and get on with grunge at all. But Hammerfall, and then this came out, and I think, yes, thank you, God. But there are moments on this that you think, what are you doing? Oh, that's awesome. I guide you towards Nessun Dorma. Cover version of Nessun Dorma. What could actually be more metal? Nothing could be more metal than that. And he kind of reins it in for most of the song. He does it really quite straight, and then he gets to the big crescendo at the end, and then he gives it the big yeah, and it's just like, yes, fantastic. It's the greatest thing I've ever heard. But then they top it with an American trilogy. Did the King need to be Manowared up? Of course he did. And again, it just makes it. Do they know? Are they? Are they really? I don't know. But you know what? It's a freaking great record, right from the start of Cold to Arms, all to the end of Fight Until We Die. It's just lovely, and I've really enjoyed revisiting it, even though I wasn't supposed to. But you know what I mean. But it's my number 3.
There you go.
Oh, dear. Cool. Well, my number 3 is where I came in with the band. So I came in with the band on Hail to England. Okay, so my brother had this on vinyl. No idea where that copy's gone. I ended up with this rather fantastic box set that contained both Into Glory Ride and Hail to England. This was released, I don't know when, oh goodness, oh, my eyesight's not good enough to read that. So quite a long time ago. So long ago that it came with this. Look at this, everybody, look.
Wow, VHS, look at that. All right.
VHS, all about Manowar. Lots and lots and lots of muscles. Do you know? And it's just, I mean, it's that long since I watched this that I can't quite remember how traumatized I was by it. Do you know? It's, it's ridiculous and fantastic at the same time, because they do take themselves hell of a seriously. And why not? Because Hail to England, as a proud Scotsman, I mean, you can feel the Hail to England. I mean, I've never seen Manowar live, but that experience must be utterly incredible. Do you know? Because every song is about just pounding it massive and large and grabbing you in. And this album blew me sideways when I first heard it, when I was however old I was when this came out. This came out in 1984. So yeah, I was 11 again. Wow. There you go. My brother leading me astray with all of this. Do you know? Blood of My Enemies, Hail to England, Army of the Immortals. I mean, I was believing every single word of this album when it came out. Do you know? And Eric Adams is just, I don't think any of us can stress enough, although we already have, what a powerhouse. What an absolutely phenomenal vocalist. And it's, you know, there's lots of great singers out there, and there's lots of great singers that sing things that are vaguely ridiculous. There are very few that are quite as believable as Eric Adams is singing this sort of stuff. There's no, I mean, I'm talking about at the end of the joke, do you mean? I don't really care, because when you listen to it, I am a believer. I'm in there, do you know, and you're so involved in the music, and it is so fist pumping, and it's so, yeah, ridiculous and pompous, and the bass drives so much of it that it's just impossible not to get completely carried away. And yeah, well, hindsight, it sounds a bit weedy and a bit, you know, when you hold it up against modern productions. But when I remember what it sounded like back then, through probably a really crap record player, because that's what we all had back then. Do you know, this thing that had a fixed arm and the speakers were all wired straight in the back that you could never replace? And this still somehow sounded bigger than the entire country, do you know? And it just did, it completely shook my world, and Hail to England is absolutely fantastic. So that's my number 3.
More about that later. My number 3, Sign of the Hammer from 1984. Which you guys have both talked about. And yeah, I love Jack Richardson's production on this one. I think this was them starting to kind of figure it out from a production standpoint. They obviously had someone working on the album who knew what the hell he was doing. Like you guys mentioned, All Men Play on 10 just absolutely demolishes everything in its path. That's how you do an album opener. I mean, plain and simple. Animals is just fast as all hell. Thor is epic. Mountains, I mean, heavy, proggy. I know we're not supposed to mention prog on a Manowar show, but screw it, I'm going to do it. The title track, The Oath, Guyana, formerly known as Diana, and just, you know, and just amazing guitar solos on this album, amazing riffs, Eric Adams all over the place. Killer album, could even rank higher, but the top 2 for me are like just a little bit untouchable. But yeah, I think Sign of the Hammer is absolutely amazing. I still remember, in fact, I'm almost positive that when I bought that LP, so I was in college when that came out. So this is 1984. And we used to have like a little record vendor that used to come to our student union building every couple of months, and he would sell like import albums. And that's where I bought this. And I believe it was a white vinyl at the time, which I had never seen white vinyl back at that point in time. So I thought that was pretty cool. But sadly, I didn't keep this or any of them. But yeah, Sign of the Hammer, my number 3.
I don't want to go too far off piste here, because not that we are prone to that, okay? But I would have to reiterate again, you put all of that vinyl in the bin, didn't you? You just took that to the dump, didn't you?
No, I sold them.
Oh, that's fine. That makes me feel a little better.
Oh, no, I would never throw stuff out. No,
that's fine.
They got a good home. Yeah, I mean, this happened probably in like the mid late 90s. I mean, I had already stopped collecting vinyl for a good, maybe 6, 7, 8 years. And I had started, amassing a pretty good CD collection. So all my vinyls sat at my parents' house, and I had no interest in them at all. I probably had about maybe 400 or 500. And, one day my parents were like, we're having a yard sale. And someone came up asking if we had any old records to sell. And we know you have yours here. Do you any interest in selling them? I'm like, yeah, get rid of them all. Take whatever you can get for them. And it was ridiculously low. I mean, what I got for them was, yeah, but I didn't give a shit at the time. So, and I haven't looked back. I don't really care. I mean, I've got, thousands and thousands and thousands of CDs. So to me, it doesn't matter. But so many people want to know what happened to Pete's vinyl collection. Do you feel bad about not having any of those old classics? I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of over it. Would it be cool to still have them? Sure. My wife, on the other hand, would not be cool with me having vinyl. I get enough flack as it is with all of this. So yeah, it's just no room. It's no room. And I don't have a record player in it. So it's no big deal. So there you have it.
Sorry, I had to ask. I do genuinely know people that took 2,000-3,000 albums, records, and put them in a skip. And that, I can barely sleep at night with that thought. Yeah. But anyway, let's get back to Manowar.
Yeah, I would never just chuck stuff like that away. I would make sure they find a good home. Otherwise, I would never live with myself. Yeah, because
Sorry.
I kept my vinyl in the loft for 20 years. Then the kids moved out, and the vinyl came back out.
See, you did the smart thing. Yeah.
Room full of vinyl upstairs.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you all you need to know, that my vinyl is still in my bedroom, and I do not live alone. And somebody else just has to put up with the fact that all of my vinyl is still. You wake up in the morning and you sit up in bed and it's there.
You know what I really miss out of some of my vinyl? I had, besides having like all those original Kiss and Led Zeppelin albums and the ELO that you open up and all that great stuff, I had a whole bunch of really cool new wave of British heavy metal imports. They're all gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can just imagine, like, whoever bought my vinyl collection was probably like, what the fuck is all this shit? I never heard of any of these bands before. Where's the John Denver and the Cher album? Sorry, not from this collection.
Whoever it is probably watching this right now, kissing them.
Exactly. Yep. Anyway, enough about my vinyl collection, which does not exist. Well, it exists with somebody, just not with me. So back to Simon. What do you got? What are we at? Number 2. Yes, number 2.
Yeah.
Battle Hymns,
the debut with lots of glare.
Yeah, with lots of glare. Sorry, glare. Yeah. That's better.
The non-glare shot. There we go.
No. What a fucking great record.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, just bam, straight in with Death Tom, Metal Days. I was genuinely driving down the road earlier today. like you do, and it wasn't the only Manowar album I did that with today. It's just great, just fantastic. There's no point picking out one tune because they're just almost all great. And then even back when did this come out?
1982.
Stupid.
82.
Thank you. Even back then, they've got that sense of the occasion because we need some narration. Who should we get? Orson Welles. Yeah. I mean, he's probably doing the Sherry commercials at the time, but nonetheless, Orson Welles. And then they remade the album, didn't they, not too long ago? And obviously Orson's gone. Christopher Lee. Jesus Christ. I wish I had Joe DeMayo's Philo Fax, as it were. Just great, kind of punky in places, just Ross the Boss is all over the situation from start to finish. Just a brilliant record. Brilliant. I just love it. But not as much as my number 1.
You guys, I got to bring it up, and I was going to talk about it when I talk about it. Oops, spoiler alert. Do you guys get like a kind of like mid-late 70s early metal feel about that album? Like for me, that album almost doesn't sound from 82. It sounds from like 77 or something like that. To me, I almost hear like a little bit of early Judas Priest and like the first Montrose record all throughout Battle Hymns.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I'm busy calling into Glory Ride the debut. This is where it started. Excuse me, talking a lot of rubbish. People are used to that, so that's okay. But yeah, I would agree. They haven't Manowared quite yet. Okay, but it's still my number 2, so it's still a bloody fantastic album. And as you know, as Simon was mentioning there, I mean, Metal Days, it's just, this is outstanding, isn't it, really? And it does kind of, not hark to the past, but it just seems right for the time, I would suggest, more than anything else. And maybe at this stage, that this is a great opening statement. This is how you say we are, you know, part of the scene, but we're capable of doing it on our own. And then from there, they decided that they would take it in their own direction. But this is really accomplished, isn't it? This is, you know, it's the real deal. This is a finished band. They're not finding their way. Yeah, okay, it maybe has a feel that they don't maintain as such, but yeah, it's a mighty opening statement, and I just absolutely love it. I really do, and I love the cover. Some of the covers are ridiculous, but I love the cover on this. And rippling muscles and veins, it's just got a great feel about it, and it fits. That does fit the time perfectly, though. It really does. When you think what other metal bands were doing and what their statements were, it just slots right in there. And yeah, we'll poke fun and blah blah blah, but everybody else was doing this kind of thing too at this stage, and metal was about, you know, lots of leather, lots of chains, lots of muscles, lots of fist pumping, and this album gives you all of that and then some. And it's just mighty, is what it is. And if there's a word that sums up Manowar, it's mighty, mighty band. And this is a mighty album. And it's really, I mean, I had this on yesterday, and it's really stood the test of time, you know, really stood the test of time really well. Yeah, it sounds of its time, and also, I don't give a damn about that. I hate it when people say, oh, it's dated. But it came out when it came out, so it sounds like that. Of course it sounds like that. That was cutting bloody edge at the time, and this was cutting edge. You know,
really, right there.
Absolutely. Sliced through everything and then some.
And then the album that's got kill. Oh, dun, 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 dun. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what. Can you imagine standing in a packed club, giving it all of that for that? I mean, you would just lose yourself for a couple of hours, wouldn't you? You know, yeah. And I would not apologise for the ridiculous mess that I would be by the end of it.
I will say I saw them a couple of years after that. Probably I saw them on the Fighting the World tour. My ears are still not the same. I mean, that was like at the time. I think I've seen one show out of hundreds in all these years that rivaled that. That was like intense in a club here in New York, actually about a half hour from where I live right now. And whew, man, crazy loud. Yeah, it's my number 2 as well. I dig it. Like I said, there's like a 70s heavy rock, early metal going throughout. Metal Days is amazing. Shell Shock, the title, you know, Manowar, it's not really a title track, but Manowar is just great anthem. Dark Avenger, just absolutely awesome. Title track, for me, I think really exemplifies where they were going very quick out of everything on this album, because this album's got a little bit of variety. It's a little bit different. Simon mentioned there's a little punky flair going on. There's some 70s hard rock and metal going on, but man, that title track, that is Manowar. That's going to start with the next album going forward forever. So yeah, just a classic debut that I don't think gets enough credit for just how great it really is when you talk about those dynamite. And I'm guilty of it too. Do these, you know, greatest heavy metal debuts of all time, blah, 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 blah. And I almost never remember to include this album, but it's up there.
I think Battle Hymn kind of when I say it was punk, it kind of reminds me of early Maiden. That they've got this kind of like, here's some good shit. It's really kind of punky, but we're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Here's a statement, and we're going to go that way now. Yep. Done that, and they did. Yep. As indeed did I mean, you know, you can say that Manowar never grew up, but they did. They did, and thank goodness for that. Number 1.
Yeah.
Well, I said I would talk about it more. My number 1, check this out. This is a cassette, everyone. Yeah.
Oh.
Hey. Yeah. I don't own a cassette player. But I do still have shitloads of cassettes. Yes, indeed. Now with Battle Hymns, I wouldn't go through every song, but with this one, just sit back for a minute. This is an absolute kick-ass classic, from almost start to finish. Wheels of Fire. Do we need? Thank you. Do we need some form of car-based Atmos in that at the start? Yes, of course we do, because it's Wheels of Fire. Can you see what they did there? It's genius, absolute genius. Kings of Metal come into town. Yeah. You can say what you like about, say, Kanye and Drake and other people, but Manowar were self-referencing 35 years ago, weren't they? Yeah. We are the kings of metal. Yeah. Living on the road. Oh, that's just batshit crazy mental stuff. That's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant to sing along to. Then we've got Sting of the Bumblebee. Until yesterday, I haven't listened to that for a good 30 years. I loathe and despise that song. And I've been listening to it yesterday. Do you know what? Guess what? Still do. It's dog shit. Absolutely no. And whenever and I've heard up a few Manowar live albums and videos and stuff, and they still play it, and it's just dog shit. And I loathe and despise it. And when I was at university, I learned how to edit tapes using razors and stuff. So it's no longer on this cassette. Made a bit of a mess.
Delete, gone.
Yeah, gotta go. But like you were saying, Pete, earlier,
can you do that for this, Simon? No.
It's what darts were invented for. Yeah,
I mean, you could scratch it; it would sound the same.
Pretty much, yeah.
Just I love it. On what I genuinely think is one of the greatest albums of all time, and one that really, I must say, means a lot to me. But it's one of the things that my kids bonded with my kids when I was little. My 27-year-old son, who's gone to the dark side. He really has. He's gone to like grime and rap and stuff like that. But the other day, he actually recited the whole of the Warrior's Prayer that he remembered. And I was like, oh God, that's so moving, that's so awesome. And Daddy, Grandpa, tell us a story. And he did it from start to finish. It was just brilliant. But again, there's Eric Adams just randomly going, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, just in random places. It's just brilliant, Just at the end of the ballad, just needs a big. Do we need a big scream at this point? I feel like we do, so let's do it. And it just total commitment with Eric Adams. I think that's the thing, 100% commitment. But whilst it's not on the album, I like it best in the live version when he says, "Right nowhere, we're going to turn down," and he'll just go, "No fucking way," and it's just. Genius. This is a genuine, in my opinion, classic record, cassette, album. Yeah, love it. Number one.
Really cool album cover. I mean,
yeah.
Granted, that's a lot of their albums would start to look a little similar, but I genuinely like that one as opposed to the Kiss Destroyer knockoff that was the album that came before it. But yeah.
So my number one. Well, you go from one classic to, in my opinion, another, because I mean, I maybe been slightly more disparaging than you two, and I mean it with all affection and all love, because Fighting the World is, for me, a genuine, absolute classic metal album. And this one, I mean, we may agree, we may not. I can't find the clunker on this one. I absolutely love everything on this album. It's bombastic, it's in your face, but it is a little more subtle in places. There's things like Defender that brings all the atmosphere, and and it just, I mean, Drums of Doom, yeah, it's a bit throwaway, but it leads fantastically into holy war fighting, and it is just, I mean, you can't help but get carried away with the whole thing, and it's just, the sound on this is great. I absolutely love this. I mean, I had it on vinyl, I probably still do. I've bought it on CD. I copied it onto cassette so that I could listen to it everywhere that I went. this was a real companion of mine, and I just loved the whole thing. Black Wind, Fire and Steel, and it's difficult not to actually say these songs. Black Wind, Fire and Steel. You can't just say them. The songs have got such character that you really have to give the chorus when you talk about them. But I mean, Blow Your Speakers with rock and roll. It's ridiculous, but it's so bloody true. You know. So yeah, I absolutely love this album. And if you'd said, can we do a show about Manowar and we'll do a top one, I'd have been happy because this is so good. It just helps that they've got lots of other great albums too. I mean, there are other ones that I could mention that I've not, but that to me is the statement. This is what, if somebody said to me, you know, there's albums you've got to take, I have to take this one. Do you know, there's better bands out there and all, but there's, from start to finish, this is a complete album. It's a journey, it's a statement, it's got atmosphere. Yeah, fighting the world. They still are. And fair play to them, because that's fantastic. I absolutely adore it. Can you tell?
It's funny because back in the day, some of us Manowar fans were horrified at that album because it was a little more commercial sounding than the ones that came before it. It wasn't quite as heavy. They're trying to look like, you know, Kiss Destroyer on the front. That's not their fault, right? And then he's singing like Paul Stanley on a couple tunes, right? So it's kind of like, what is this all about? However, I think that album has held up pretty well. It's really short. It's like barely over a half hour long.
Yeah,
you know,
but in and out and make it all count.
Yeah,
you know, and it maybe says a lot about what I was listening to at the time. To be fair,
I mean, yeah. Well, they were trying to make money and get some air.
Every box on me. Yeah.
But man, I played that like 2 hours ago, and Defender is still as great today as it was back then,
isn't it?
I'm like, ride like the wind, my heart, my son. It was like, holy cow, this is just as good as it was back in.
No, holy war.
Great stuff. And saying all that, it did not make my list. However, my number one is I think it's the first one I ever got. But I don't really remember because I bought like a bunch of Manowar albums all at the same time. So I don't really remember if it was this one or if it was Into Glory Ride or the first album. I don't remember. But anyway, Hail to England is my favorite. That is my number one. With the exception of the ridiculous, sloppy Black Arrows solo, which the funny thing is, I was listening to this earlier and I was on YouTube and that track came up and I started reading the comments from everybody. People are like, God, that is the sloppiest guitar solo. It's not a guitar solo. The sloppiest solo I've ever heard in my life. I can't believe that they put that on this album. And then I listened to it and I'm like, yeah, that's quite ridiculous, just like I remember it. And I'm like, why does he include one of these on almost every single album? It's like, is his ego that huge? I mean, we know you can play, but play something that's a little musical and not just this. One of the guys made a comment. It's like, oh, is that like someone trying to do eruption on the bass? Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, enough of that. The rest of the album is amazing. Blood of My Enemies, crushing. Each Dawn I Die. Kill with Power. Die. I'm not even going to try and get to those high notes because I'll just flub it ridiculously. The title track is amazing. Army of the Immortals, amazing. Bridge of Death is one of my favorite songs from this band. It's just big and doomy, and I love it. And I just think this is an absolute classic album, and it's easily when I was putting this list together, that was at number one. First thing, I didn't even have to think twice about it, and then it was kind of figure out the rest of the list. But they have a lot of good ones. I mean, I really like the Triumph of Steel. I think is a very strong album. Although I think the big 28-minute long track, was it whatever, Ecstasy in 8 parts, whatever the hell, that's the big one. I think there's moments on that are amazing, but I think it's just, to me, it just sounded like they wanted to do a big epic just to do a big epic. It's got the bass solo on there and all sorts of other things, but I think there's pieces of it that are amazing. Louder Than Hell is pretty good too, from 96. And Fighting the World also I have in my honorable mentions. Those are mine. So,
well, my honorable mentions, Triumph of Steel. I think it maybe helps that Achilles, Agony, and Ecstasy in 8 parts actually comes in 2 4-part pieces on the vinyl. It's not quite so in that sense, but I think that's a really good album, really strong album. And my other
Great
honorable
production
mention,
on it too. Great production. I think.
yeah, it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Is Kings of Metal.
Yeah.
So isn't it great that we've all chosen a different number one and are so damn passionate about it?
Yeah.
That shows you the strength here. Yeah, I mean, as I say, I may be a little bit more guilty of, extracting the urine a little bit here, shall we say? But bloody hell, the music's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah. And I mean, this doesn't make my top 5, and I'll listen to this any day he asks me to. It's a really bold statement again. And yeah, I mean, the artwork on this is just fantastic. Really love it. So yeah, they would be my honourable mentions. I'll be honest and say that what's come since kind of loses me, to be honest, but some bands do that, some bands don't.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Simon? You got a couple?
I have nothing else to add, except we've got some good live albums. About 49 live albums.
Yeah, right? Yeah, they're like Udo, right? It's like every 6 months there's a live album. It's like, what? Thinking of, there we go. Yeah. So did they? I forget. I'm trying to envision right now. Did they basically keep the same logo throughout most of their career, or has it changed up a lot? I mean, you got a bunch of the albums handy. Is it pretty similar?
It's on all of them. It's on all of these.
Yeah. I love when bands do that.
I mean,
there's something about that consistency.
There's a great album cover. Okay.
Yeah.
It's still a cool logo, but I mean, that's a double album, and that's the best we can do with it. At least we know the name, but there you go. Yeah. So right at the start, even slightly understated, and it's a cracking logo. And,
yeah, I think so.
I'm not going to surprise anyone by saying I like a logo. Yeah.
They've had the same lineup. I think since Ross left, haven't they kept like a pretty consistent lineup throughout most of the years since Simon? Or they had like some drummers that have come and gone.
They've had the exploding drummer syndrome, haven't they?
Yeah.
Isn't Anders Johansson drumming now from Hammerfall? You leave Hammerfall because you're being told what to play, and you go and work with Joey DeMaio.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think we can talk about the guitarist, can we? So
yeah.
No.
So
it's funny because Ross plays around here where I live a lot. And he now does like full Manowar sets, and people rave about it. I haven't seen him. I should, because everybody's like, oh, Ross the Boss is playing full Manowar shows. He's playing tiny little places all over this area. I need to go because people have said it's just absolutely incredible. I don't know who's playing with him, singing. I haven't a clue, but everybody raves about it because I guess Manowar never comes around here. So you can catch Ross the Boss doing the full Manowar set every year, every 6 months, whatever. And it for a lot of us, I guess it scratches that itch because you don't really get to see, anybody playing these songs. So it's better than
that. And to save anybody in the comments, okay, so we've currently got Joey DeMaio, Eric Adams, Anders Johansson, Evie Martel on guitar, and there have been quite a few. Carl Kennedy on drums, Denny Hamzik on drums, Scott Columbus obviously, David Shankel on guitars, Rhino on drums for 2 stints, Carl Logan on guitars, Paul Clark Jr. on drums, Marcus Castellani on drums, and a few keyboard players, but with all due respect to them, I'm sure they're all very good. Manowar are not the keyboards. So there you go. So actually in recent times there's maybe been, but they've been on the go a long time, so that's understandable. And the core of the band is still there, other than Ross the Boss. So but that happened a long time ago. So yeah.
Okay. Stephen, I got to say, I wanted to say this the other day. So you've got like a Gibson Les Paul sticker on your wall. Every time I look over at your box of the Zoom screen, I think your like microphone is hanging down into the like freaking me out. I've been wanting to tell you that for like 2 weeks. It's just like I'm like, oh, you move your mic out of the way. It's like it's like
no. That's
I mean, it's very cool. Obviously, I like Gibson guitars, so it's like, but it's just like I kind of see it out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, oh, there's a damn microphone again. No, it's just a guitar.
As was covered early on my time on the channel, when there was a million posters back here and bits from Kerrang and various things. This is my eldest daughter's old room. It's also a shambles over this side, but there you go. And most of it was all taken down because you know, she doesn't live here anymore. And these were mine anyway, so these were put back up. But yes, this is actually Katie's. So, but yeah, I didn't realize that, you know, all of my equipment was, excuse me, on show.
It's the upper corner. It's like you could just barely see from like the second pickup down usually. So I'm like, it always looks like, you know, you ever see like these really cheesy like B movies and horror movies, and like you could see the boom mic just kind of hanging over the top, and you're not supposed to. It's like, but obviously someone missed that. So every time I look over, I'm like, oh, there's that microphone hanging from the top, but it's actually not. So yeah.
I'm the constant blooper.
Yes, exactly.
Pretty much.
I mean, between that and we got Simon's giraffe, I think that is that what that looks like? Is that a giraffe? There you go.
So, 2 giraffes.
2 giraffes. Oh, yeah. It's like
mommy and baby.
Yeah, there you go.
Not much I can say to that, really.
We'll leave that one alone.
Yes.
So there you have it, everybody. Top 5 albums from the 3 of us for Manowar, Born to Live Forevermore. So in the comments below, please either rank the whole catalog if you like, or give us your top 5, whatever you want to do, and let us know your love for Manowar. And thanks for watching. We got coming up, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to rank, this time we're going to kind of switch gears quite a bit. We're going to rank the albums, there's only 4 of them, of UK pop, prog, hard rock, whatever the hell you want to call them, Cats in Space, a dynamite band. So if some of you were watching this saying, who the hell's Cats in Space? Well, tune in and find out. So that's coming up. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, but more importantly, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Simon Bray and Stephen Reid, stay tuned for more. And I am Pete Pardo. See you all soon. Bye-bye.